Hey guys, it's Mike here with Morrison's Outdoor Adventures. Continuing on with our recovery series. So we've already talked about kind of identifying capacities and stuff like that, and talking about tree straps. So the next step in the recovery gear is looking at connections, right? So there's a lot of different things out on the market. Today we are going to focus on soft shackles and bow shackles. They're kind of the two main things that we're going to work with today. So you have your soft shackles, which are kind of not newer on the market, but definitely newer than a lot of the other items that we have out there. And then bow shackles, which we've had for a long time. So let's talk about soft shackles first, right? So they're made out of synthetic winch line, which is, depending on the manufacturer, it's high molecular polyethylene fibers. So when you are looking for a soft shackle, and this is super important because there's a lot of different manufacturers out there on the market, but when you're looking for a good quality soft shackle, this is where those weights and capacities and ratings really come into play. What you are looking for is a rating on that soft shackle, not on the web page, not in an email or anything like that. You want the rating on a tag on that soft shackle. That way you know that that soft shackle is rated to that. You can hand it to somebody, they'll know it's rated to that, and the manufacturer is willing to actually put a rating on that soft shackle. And we are looking for minimum break strength. This is where we really start to see that average break strength, and even a lot of companies doing maximum break strength. But remember, we're looking for that minimum breaking strength or minimum tensile strength, right? So right here is one design. This is an Ironman. So the minimum break strength of this one is, let's see, 17,500 kilograms, right? And this is kind of one of the older design soft shackles. So it's got an abrasion guard on it, but you can take that abrasion guard off if you want to. It's very easy to take it on and off. This is what we call a two-leg design, right? So it's got two different legs that go up into the knot, and they intertwine with each other to form the loop so that we can make it a complete soft shackle. So one thing I do like about ones like this is you can take that abrasion guard on and off. So if you have a tight space that you're trying to get this through, you can easily take that off. You know, normally we're staying away from sharp edges and stuff like that anyway, so the abrasion guard is a little unnecessary. So other types of designs, like the Factor 55 one here, they actually have the built-in abrasion guard. It works very well just because it's very tightly wound in there. You can feel kind of through the abrasion guard here. It is not removable, but this is a two-leg design as well, exactly like this one. Only difference is that it has a non-removable abrasion guard. Again, nice sewn on tag right there. Minimum break strength, this particular one is 43,500 pounds, and Factor 55 takes it a step further with a working load limit of 8,700 pounds. Now this is a longer one, right? So if you're looking to get around something that's bigger, you can easily wrap this around. You can even, if you needed to, double it up, so you can loop it twice here and double it up and make a connection if you needed it to be shorter, okay? Other types, like this is one of Factor 55's bigger ones. It does not have an abrasion guard, but it is a much bigger soft shackle made here, and this one is a minimum break strength of 60,000 pounds and a working load limit of 12,000 pounds, okay? Same design, it just does not have that abrasion guard on it. And then this is one of my older ARB ones that I have. It's got a Velcro abrasion guard here. One of the things that I like about this type of design is it does have, after it's pulled tight, you know, they get really hard to take apart. So it has this twine right here that you can use to loosen it up and pull it out. Now this one is about the end of its service. Remember, your soft shackles are a wearable item. It's a little bit harder to get these off, and One of the downsides to these is they actually put the rating right here next to the knot, so it's very common for these to get worn because, again, we'll see here in just a second when we talk about loading it, but when the load is right there, it wears where that rating is at. So let's talk about rigging soft shackles. All right. So let's talk a little bit about making connections with soft shackles. So soft shackles are not an end-all be-all as far as the only connection points you need to carry. Bow shackles still serve a purpose because this is basically synthetic winch line, so we can't use this on sharp edges or squared off edges because it will cause wear and tear to the soft shackle and can cause it to get cut or broken, right? So how do we want to rig them? Because that's important. We don't, ever want to rig like this where the knot is up in top because it pulls against that loop and puts pressure against that knot and it can slip off or pop that knot off. Same thing, we don't ever want to rig directly on the loop here. Then we're pulling against the knot again and it can come undone. The way we want to rig these, is always right next to the knot so that we're loading that knot side. So we get this nice 90-degree angle right here. Doesn't matter if it's top or bottom, or which side it goes on. We just want to make sure that we're loading it right there. Even sometimes you'll see them get a little off or they'll rotate in the recovery, but ultimately this is how we want them set up. So you can, move your abrasion guard closer right there and load them. And again, it doesn't matter which end, whether it's on the strap or a hook or whatever, just make sure you're loading that knot, not the loop, or putting that knot in the center. That's where soft shackles are the strongest, is when we load them correctly like that. So typically we don't do rope on rope, where we're loading, for instance, where we're putting two soft shackles together or we're putting rope around the soft shackle. We typically want some type of connection point there, like a hook or a factor 55 thimble, something to that effect, because rope on rope we can get some rope creep and burn and it can damage the soft shackle. So we typically really like to have something where we're making that connection. So don't ever just loop your rope right through. So let's talk about bow shackles, right? I know most people are going to call them D-rings. There is a difference between D-rings and bow shackles. So bow shackles have this bow here and they are made for straps and rope, where a D-ring would be straight up and down on the sides and it's specifically made for chain. So correct terminology for these would be bow shackles. So screw pin bow shackles, or clevis, is what we refer to them as in the overhead lifting world. The reason for that is here we've got a screw pin that we can unscrew and make our connection with. Now remember that not all bow shackles are created equal. Make sure that you are buying them from a reputable brand. I like to buy mine from overhead lifting companies or bigger name brands like ARB, Ironman, even Factor 55. They use overhead lifting like Van Beest, Crosby, Gunnebo, those types of companies. But it's hard sometimes to tell with some of the off-name brands whether or not they're good, because they'll have the same exact markings on them and everything. But typically what I'm looking for is when they make these, the casting on the edges, you can tell when they take a little extra time, they smooth it out, and it really looks like a good quality job that's being made. Also, how that pin seats in there. A lot of times your cheaper ones, those pins will be very loose. They'll kind of rattle around in there, and they never quite seat 100%. Ratings on these, you're not going to see a minimum break strength, right? What you're going to see is that WLL, working load limit. You're going to see a number, typically for a 3/4 inch bow shackle, it's going to be 4 3/4 and then a T. That T stands for tons, 2,000 pounds in a ton, right? Now that's working load limit. What the working load limit is, just to kind of refocus back on that again, like in our first video, that's kind of like a safe working load limit. It means that this bow shackle right here can continually be loaded to that 4 3/4 tons, and it'll never deform, deflect, or break, right? Basically, to get that working load limit, industry standard in the overhead lifting world is they take the minimum brake strength and they divide it by 6, and that gives them the working load limit. So like a Van Beest or Crosby, their minimum brake strength is going to be well over 60,000 pounds for this style bow shackle. So very, very strong. The biggest difference between these and the soft shackles is weight, right? Soft shackles are a whole lot lighter. These are going to be a whole lot heavier. So if you're using these and they do come loose, they can do a whole lot more damage, whereas soft shackle is not going to do as much damage. But these are abrasion resistant, right? So we can put them on sharp edges, squared off recovery points, things like that, and they're not going to do any damage. And typically we're not seeing good quality bow shackles fail. What we're seeing is like recovery points or bumpers or the attachment point getting torn off. When you're using these, okay, so I've tightened this one way down, but what we want to do is we want to screw them down and then back off a 1/4 to a 1/2 turn. That way they can still rotate and they won't tighten on themselves like this one did. So I cannot get this one undone. I'll either need to get a tool, maybe I can get it with another bow shackle, there we go, but I can pop it loose, right? So we tighten it down or shoulder it and we back off that 1/4 to 1/2 turn. You still have plenty of threads there, okay, it's still sticking out past, but we don't have to worry about it tightening on itself. Same thing, I know a lot of people like to ride around with these on the front of their vehicle and they'll tighten them way down, but then when you need to go make a connection, you gotta have a tool to get them off. Or they're kind of rusted and corroded together. So it is nice to have them ready to go where they're nice and loose. And good mentor of mine, Scott Fields, told me, he said, don't be a screw up, screw down. So don't ever work where you're actually having to work and put the pin up, right? Like this, where you're screwing up, because sure enough, it's gonna be nighttime, in the mud, you're gonna drop it and you're gonna have a problem. So what we wanna do is we wanna screw down so that that pin is secured in there, okay? And then again, we tighten it down or shoulder it and we back off that 1/4 to a 1/2 turn. Now it can rotate. It's never going to be able to rotate 360 degrees, right? Several times, so it's never going to come loose. So we don't have to worry about that. And there's not really any structural loss. Now when we load these or we rig these, right? Straps and soft items like the eye of a rope or the eye of a strap goes on the bow portion, okay? Not on the pin. Typically our hooks or our other attachment points go around the pin here, because most of our straps, okay, let me grab a strap here. Most of our straps, the eyes are actually bigger than the opening there. So when we load them, it will actually compress the eye and it can cause some strength loss or damage to the eye of the strap. Whereas if we do it here, we don't have to worry about that. One of the main concerns with these is we do not want to side load them. There is strength loss if you do that. The more you get away from straight, parallel, basically, one end to the other, loading, we start to have strength loss here. Now they do have kind of working angles from the overhead lifting industry because the strap would come down, go underneath the pallet and come back up. But if we get too far off, then it could cause these to start to want to separate. Now, some of the bow shackles that you'll see out there will have a pin with just a clip or a clevis on the end of it. We don't use those because if you do side load them, they're just going to separate right apart. At least with these, you have that thread that's going to hold them together and you're not going to have to worry about them separating as much as you would if they shifted during a recovery and maybe you didn't see it. It could still cause some deflection in it. So we do, again, want to make sure that we are loading them in line. Now, the great thing about bow shackles is they're not really a wearable item. If you buy a bow shackle, you're going to pretty much have it for life unless you lose it or you lose the pin. So make sure that you're keeping track of your pieces and parts, whereas a soft shackle is a wearable item. But they both have their kind of uses. And they both have their place. Normally I'll carry, anywhere from 5 to 6 soft shackles, but I only carry about 2 bow shackles now, maybe 3. But I can carry a whole lot more of these because they're lighter. But these are not something to get rid of just yet. There's also still plenty of gear out there that's got sharp edges on it, like some of your pulley blocks and stuff like that, that you're going to have to use this on. Or most recovery points on bumpers have a nice 90-degree edge to them. You're going to have to use a bow shackle. And there's not really any point, okay? A lot of people leave these attached to their vehicle and then they'll put a soft shackle through it. Not really any point in that, other than sometimes you may not be able to get the bow shackle off, so you put one of these on there. In those situations, you're just adding in an extra connection point, and it's not necessarily good to do that. So just keep that in mind when you are using them. But that is soft shackles and bow shackles. And again, if you are interested in learning more, you can join one of our recovery classes, or comment, put something down in the comments, or if you have anything to add, throw it down in the comments, and we'll be sure to reply back to you. But like and subscribe, every little bit helps us with getting these videos out there and keeping information flowing to you guys. But thank you, and hopefully we'll see you on the trail soon.